This is my second update for the day, and I wanted to get this video out there because there's a lot to talk about since the video that I did in the morning. A lot to update with regards to Finland and NATO. A lot to update with regards to Russia's stance with Ukraine entering the European Union. We got some statements from Joseph Borrell as well, the foreign minister for the EU. And we also have a good clown world as well with regards to Roland Garros and the French Open. But the real big news is Turkey and what Turkey has said with regards to Finland and NATO and Sweden as well. Basically, Scandinavia is how Erdogan is lumping it all together. So the Turkish president, Tayyip Erdogan, has come out with a statement. Of course, Turkey is a NATO member. And they have come out with a statement saying that they are not favorable to, and I quote, terror-safe havens like Sweden and Finland entering NATO. So Turkey has the second largest military in NATO. It's an extremely important country when it comes to being a NATO member, if not the most important country next to the United States. And Erdogan has come out to say in a televised appearance, televised comments to reporters, that he is not favorable to the Scandinavian countries entering NATO, and he's called Finland and Sweden terrorist safe havens for terrorism. So that is what Erdogan has said. He said this as quoted by the Associated Press. He cited concerns over political activities of backers of separatist Kurdish militants in both countries, and I quote, Sweden has become a home for PKK and other terror groups. We don't view their NATO membership positively. This is what the Turkish media said with regards to Erdogan's comments. He says that Scandinavian countries have become a safe haven for terrorism. They are even members of the parliament in some countries. So terrorists, according to Erdogan, are even members of the parliaments in these Scandinavian countries. He said that Sweden has become a home for PKK and other terror groups. We don't view their NATO membership positively. This is a big statement from Erdogan, a very, very big statement. And Russia has also sounded off on Finland, specifically Finland's membership into NATO. It seems like Finland is definitely of more concern, for obvious reasons, obvious geographical and historical reasons, than Sweden is for Russia. And you had Russia's deputy UN ambassador, Dmitry Polyansky, threatening each country more directly by saying, as soon as Finland and Sweden become members of NATO and military units of the alliance are there, these territories will become a possible target for the Russian military. And Russia has also signaled that they're going to most likely be dealing with Finland with regards to gas supplies come May 23rd in some sort of retaliation against Finland's move to enter NATO. Now, this is kind of Finnish media, Russian media coming out with these claims that Russia is going to shut off the gas to Finland. But Finland's gas payment is up on May 23rd, if I'm not mistaken, for the gas for rubles scheme. And it looks like Russia will move quickly to cut Finland off from gas. Let me just double check that and make sure it is on May 13th, today, sorry. Oh no, May 23rd. May 23rd. It could happen as early as May 13th, but most likely the gas will be turned off on May 23rd, which is the due date for the next payment from Finland to Russia with regards to gas for rubles. Now, Finland has said they're not going to participate in gas for rubles, so I imagine when that payment is not made on the 23rd, that Russia will be cutting off Finland's gas. Russia could stop providing Finland with natural gas due to the country's bid to join NATO. Finnish newspaper Iltalehti reported on Thursday, citing unnamed sources. According to the publication, it could happen as early as Friday, May 13th, which is today, but the newspaper notes that previous concerns among the Finnish public that Russia could turn off the gas on May 23rd, which is the due date for the next payment. The country's Minister for European Affairs, Tuti Tuppurainen, told the Helsingin Sanomat newspaper recently that Finland did not intend to agree to Russia's new ruble-based gas payment scheme. So, looks like we're going to have some really interesting activity in the next couple of days with regards to NATO, Turkey, Sweden, Finland, Russia, gas for rubles payments to Russia via Finland, which is not going to be made, and all of these things are going to take place in the next couple of days. So while it'll be a retaliation, some people may view it as a retaliation from Russia with regards to Finland. Russia is being consistent in their policy. They've turned off the gas to Poland, from what I understand, via the Yamal pipeline because of Poland's stance with regards to gas for rubles payments. Poland said they're not going to do it, so it looks like the gas is being shut off now, piece by piece, to Poland. You have now May 23rd, which is the cutoff date for Finland, so I imagine Russia is going to stand firm on their gas for rubles stance, and they're going to say, you know what, Finland, we didn't get the payments, so come May 23rd, your gas is shut off as well. And I think this would have been done whether Finland was going to enter NATO or not. So some people may be calling this a retaliation. I just think it's Russia being consistent with their payment policy. You do have 22 companies that have already signed on to gas for rubles, and another 14 are preparing the application. So the gas for rubles scheme has been a success for getting unfriendly countries to pay for gas in a way that protects Russia's profits, Russia's income from the service they provide, and the countries that decide to not take part in the gas for rubles, well, it looks like Russia is holding firm and shutting off the gas as per their non-compliance. So we'll see what'll happen. Anyway, we're going to see a lot of activity take place with regards to all of these countries, and I'm very interested to see the response from Finland and Sweden with regards to Erdogan's comments. Boy, oh boy, Erdogan. He must be looking for something. Maybe he's looking for the EU to hand him some money or something for for the okay to Finland and Sweden's NATO membership. I'm sure Erdogan is looking for some negotiations, and he's using his leverage to get something out of NATO. So Trump Jr. has come out to criticize the $40 billion aid package from the U.S. to Ukraine. And I just want to kind of talk about this real quick. Trump Jr. came out with a tweet, and he said, "You can't find baby formula in the United States right now, but Congress is voting today to send $40 billion to Ukraine. Let's put America first for a change." So an interesting statement from Trump Jr. MAGA, America first. That's their platform. That's the Trump Jr. platform, mantra. And obviously, Trump Jr. is going to call out the corruption and the grift that is the $40 billion to Ukraine, especially since Rand Paul has come out to say that this $40 billion is most certainly going to be stolen. So Rand Paul is telling the American people, look, this $40 billion, consider it lost. And now you have Trump Jr. saying, how about we put America first for a change? And of course, he's citing the fact that there is a baby formula shortage. So Trump Jr., good on him for calling this out. And what's the other update I want to get to? We have Lavrov expanding a bit on the story that I reported earlier this morning, which has to do with Russia's change in stance with regard to Ukraine's accession into the European Union. So at first, Russia was saying, you know what, Ukraine, a red line is NATO, so Ukraine has to stay neutral with regards to NATO. But as far as the EU goes, we kind of don't care. Well, that's changed. And you had the UN deputy representative, Polyansky, once again. He's making a lot of statements and press appearances. The Russian UN deputy representative, well, he came out and he said, our stance has changed. Now a red line is Ukraine not only entering NATO, but entering the EU, which is a dramatic change of policy for Russia. And now you have Lavrov coming out and saying this: the EU is turning from the constructive economic platform that it was originally meant to be into an aggressive, militant player that has ambitions stretching far beyond the European continent. And Lavrov was explaining why Russia, which had previously been amenable to the prospect of Ukraine becoming a member of the bloc, has now made a U-turn on the issue. Lavrov said that Kiev's membership would pose a greater risk to Moscow than previously believed. So Lavrov is confirming what the Russian UN representative said. That is that Ukraine now has no chance to enter the European Union. It's a no-go. It's another red line. And of course, I always say this with the caveat of we don't know what Ukraine is going to even look like in 3 to 6 months, or if it's going to even exist in 3 to 6 months. So Russia is really turning on they're really turning the diplomatic screws to both the European Union and to NATO. The response from Europe has been Joseph Borrell to say that the EU is going to give another $2 billion in aid to Ukraine. That's been the EU's response. In other words, more money to Zelensky and the Zelensky regime. And they're going to start off with $500 million being sent to Ukraine right away in military aid. And Borrell was speaking to reporters at the G7 foreign ministers meeting in Germany, and he explained that the new tranche of money, which will be the fourth provided to Ukraine by the EU, will be allocated for the purchase of heavy weaponry, including armored cars, tanks, and artillery, along with ammunition, and will take the bloc's total aid to Ukraine to around 2 billion euros. Borrell told reporters that the EU needs a new impetus of military support, along with more pressure on Russia with economic sanctions and continuing the international isolation of Russia and countering misinformation. What a ridiculous statement. So he kind of throws it all in there. He says this is going to be a new impetus because the previous impetus for military support wasn't working. So now they need a new impetus for military support, which is going to be $500 million to Ukraine, and then another $1.5 million coming later. And that's going to be the new impetus of military support. And then, of course, more pressure with economic sanctions, because the previous 6 rounds of economic sanctions against Russia with regards to Ukraine have hurt the EU more than they've hurt Russia. So now we're going to have the new sanctions pressure coming. And of course, he has to throw in misinformation because, well, censorship. You know, you can't have an aid package to Ukraine without talking about censorship and misinformation. And that's all coming from the war hawk foreign minister Joseph Borrell of the EU. And for his part, Dmitry Medvedev, the deputy head of the Security Council and former president of Russia, came out with a statement saying how all of these sanctions, these anti-Russian sanctions, are going to change the world and are going to be the downfall of this current world order and the emergence of a new, fair world order. So Dmitry Medvedev, who was on Telegram on Friday, he pointed out that the effects of the restrictions hurt not only Russia, but also those who impose them and the international community as a whole. Medvedev said that a number of global supply chains are going to be destroyed by the sanctions, creating a risk of a major logistical crisis. He also added that some Western airlines may also go broke due to being unable to use Russian airspace. Medvedev said that the energy crisis in the countries that slapped self-harming sanctions on Russian oil and gas will worsen, with energy prices continuing to grow. A full-fledged international food crisis will emerge with the prospects of famine in individual states. Medvedev also said that new regional conflicts will break out in places where tensions remain unresolved for decades, while the terrorists will increase their activities, thinking that the attention of the Western governments is being distracted by wrangling with Russia. So Medvedev laid out all kinds of scenarios for chaos, but he also said that new international alliances of countries will be formed based on pragmatic rather than ideological Anglo-Saxon principles. He also said that in the end, a new security architecture is going to be created that's going to acknowledge the weaknesses of westernized concepts of international relations, the collapse of the American-centered world, and the existence of internationally respected interests of the countries which are going through an acute phase of their contradictions with the West. So Medvedev really, he went all out on this latest Telegram post. He's becoming a real hawk. Medvedev is becoming a real Russian hawk. And a lot of people thought he was soft and he was very pro-West. Boy, is that really, really not true. That's the furthest thing from the truth with regards to Medvedev. He's turned out to be a Russian patriot and nationalist in a way. So finally, since we're talking about the EU sanctions and the comments that Medvedev made with regards to EU sanctions, it looks like that this oil embargo is really hitting a snag because a lot of countries are just not on board with it. I talked about how Hungary was saying that the EU has no plans with regards to an EU embargo on Russian oil. They have no way to combat the effects of such an embargo. It now looks like that, according to Bloomberg, EU countries are still striving to agree on the sanctions package in full, and some member states believe that the decision on Russian oil should be postponed. So it looks like that these oil sanctions are, this oil embargo is not coming off too well for a lot of EU countries. They're kind of balking at this embargo. They know it's going to hurt them more than it's going to hurt Russia. And EU Foreign Policy Chief, once again, Joseph Borrell, on Friday announced that work on the oil ban has so far reached no results. Quote, "The work on the oil embargo continues. On Monday, the foreign ministers will deal with this. I am sure we will have an agreement. I am sure that we must get rid of oil dependencies on Russia. Since there is no solution at the ambassadorial level, it will be discussed by the ministers." So Borrell and Van der Crazy, they're committed. They're committed to getting these embargoes rammed through and put in place. But Hungary is not the only country that's raising the alarm bells. They're not the only country, and it's going to really, really hurt the EU. You watch. It's going to be a disaster for the EU if they get this oil embargo in place. So that's all I wanted to talk about. Is there anything else that I have here? Let me just do a quick check. There is a story about how the Biden administration is canceling oil lease sales in the U.S. So even though there's a fuel crisis in the U.S., it looks like the Biden administration is calling off 3 sales of offshore exploration, even as America struggles with surging fuel prices. So Joe Biden's administration has canceled 3 offshore oil and natural gas lease sales, including one in Alaska, diminishing prospects for new sources of supply, even as record gasoline prices help keep the US inflation rate at a 40-year high. So it doesn't look like the Biden administration is too keen to solve the energy crisis. They're signed up to the Green New Deal, and if it means that that America has to suffer for 10, 20 years, then so be it. The ends always justify the means with these green ideologues. And Biden, being a weak president, well, he's a hostage to these green ideologues. And they're going to ram through the Green New Deal, even if it means that America has to suffer for the next 5 or 10 years. Because it doesn't look like the Biden administration is making any kind of effort to solve the energy crisis in the U.S. So, with that said, let's do a clown world real quick. And this clown world has to do with tennis, has to do with the French Open and Roland Garros. So the French Open is allowing Russian tennis players to take part. So they're not doing what Wimbledon did, or what Wimbledon is trying to do, which is ban Russian and Belarusian tennis players from taking part in Wimbledon, even though there is news that the ATP, that the Tennis Association, is going to take action against Wimbledon for their ban on Russian tennis players. So we'll see what'll happen there. But Roland Garros so far has said Russian and Belarusian tennis players, professionals, can take part in the French Open. But, there's a but in all of this. They're going to let the Russian tennis players play as long as they don't make statements in support of Russian President Vladimir Putin. That is the caveat to all of this. So, if you are a Russian professional tennis player, and you are taking part in the French Open, you cannot make any positive statements with regards to Russian President Vladimir Putin. That's an interesting form of censorship. But all right, I guess it's not as bad as an all-out ban on playing in the tournament. But you know what? You have to think, if you're like, say, Medvedev, who's like, what is he? Is he number 2 now in the world? Djokovic is number 1 still, and Medvedev's number 2. So if you're Medvedev and you're the number 2 tennis player in the world, and you're Russian, and the French Open comes to you and says, you can play, but you know what? We're not going to allow you to make any positive statements with regards to your own president. What do you say if you're Medvedev? Do you just swallow that kind of authoritarianism and that kind of censorship and control? And do you say, you know what, fine, I won't make any statements about Putin, even though you probably weren't going to talk politics anyway? Why would you talk politics? But, I mean, it's a tennis match, a tennis tournament. But even so, it's just kind of a crappy thing for the French Open to do. And if you're a professional tennis player, you have to sit there to yourself and say, what am I, a child? You don't control me. I mean, you don't control what I get to say and what I don't get to say. I understand that there are certain rules, and maybe those rules extend to things like during the press conference you can't curse, or you can't say bad words or something like that. I don't know. But to not be able to say, you know, I like my president, or President Putin I support President Putin, that's kind of excessive. Because you know what's going to happen. Here's what's going to be the scenario. Medvedev's going to win a match. He's going to do a post-match press conference, and reporters are going to try to bait him. They're going to talk politics, and they're going to say, Medvedev, what do you think of Russia's invasion of Ukraine? And they're going to try to bait Medvedev, and they're going to try to get him to say something bad about Russia and Putin. They're going to try to bait him, and Medvedev's going to have to dodge those attacks. And it just would have been interesting if the reporters did give him a question like that, and if Medvedev was allowed to answer honestly and to say, you know what? I support my country and I support my president, and I'm Russian. What do you want me to say? I mean, that's an honest answer. Or even conversely, if he said, I don't support my president, but I support my country. If that's how he feels, that's also fine. But it would have been good to allow him to speak his truth, to speak honestly as to how he feels about that, because you know that the matches he's going to take part in, and he's going to win, because he's going to win a lot of matches, you know those questions are going to come up, because the media is not going to be able to resist. And they're going to try to get him to speak badly about Russia and about Putin. And it would have been interesting to have allowed Medvedev to, and every Russian tennis player, I'm just using Medvedev as an example since he's the number 2 player in the world. It would have been interesting to have gotten an honest answer from the Russian tennis players. Anyway, this is Clown World, and in Clown World, you have these ridiculous and crazy rules, like what Roland Garros is now putting forth. So that's the video, everybody. theduran.locals.com. Take care.